Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today we're fortunate to have as our guests Tricia Laursen, Brenna Crowe, and Joanie Cullinan, all of whom are associated with 1540 Connection, a nonprofit organization that's saving lives by teaching people about early cancer detection. Tricia serves as the president of the organization. Brenna is a cancer survivor and early detection advocate. And Joanie is a firefighter in Wellesley, an early detection advocate, and also experiencing and dealing with melanoma right now. During the program, we'll be finding out why and how 1540 Connection came about, how it's grown, developed, and operates today, and how those of you watching and others can go about the detecting of cancer at an early stage. Let's start by meeting our guest and then finding out all about 1540 Connection. Welcome. Really delighted you're all able to be here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I think, as we all know, cancer is an illness that touches all of us in various ways. So really important the work you're doing, and wonderful that you're able to share it with viewers and get the message across. Before we jump right to that and the approach that you've taken, I think it would be helpful to hear a little bit about your backgrounds and association and involvement with 1540 Connection. Tricia?
Sure. I actually joined 1540 Connection just over 10 years ago now, really at its founding. And have been with the organization since then, and have met so many great people like Brenna and Joanie with us here today. And I can dive in more into the history if you want. But
we'll move on and then we'll come back. Brenna, welcome.
Hi, yeah. So I found 1540 Connection through a family friend after having been misdiagnosed for over a year before I finally got my Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis. So it was definitely really important to me to spread their message. And yeah, I'm continuing to do that now.
Okay, we'll hear more about your story shortly. Joanie, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Joanie Cullinan. I'm a Wellesley firefighter. Last February, I was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma. And when your job or career is really to save lives and you have to step away from that, you lose a sense of purpose. So I'm a helper by nature. That's just who I am, how I was brought up. And when I ran into the 1540 Foundation at a Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts state meeting, I knew that it was something I had to be a part of. They welcomed me on board. We've kind of jumped in head first and done a lot of work for firefighters, discussing early detection, and it's given me a little bit of purpose back, and I feel like I really am helping others while I'm fighting this diagnosis.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know we'll find out through our conversation that firefighters are a population that have higher instances of cancer, and that Tricia, you and others in the organization have done a lot of outreach over the years to various departments, both locally and beyond the state as well.
Right. Yeah.
Before we hear a little bit more about that, could you take us back maybe 10 years to the beginning and how the organization came about?
Sure. We were founded by a gentleman and his family from the Worcester area, Jim Coughlin and Nancy, and their family. And the reason they founded 1540 Connection is they had been involved in fundraising to advance cancer treatment and care for a long time. And they had lost close family friends and others to cancer and seen the devastating impact. A good friend of Jim's had run a golf tournament to support the Jimmy Fund. And then his friend was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a form of cancer, and he had said to Jim, "If I should die before you, will you continue this tournament?" And of course the goal is to lessen the impact of cancer on lives, right? So almost a year later, Jim's friend died, and Jim continued the tournament. And as part of stewarding the funds raised, he would meet with leadership people, say from Dana-Farber, and talk to them about how the money was being spent. And it was really through that process that he learned about the impact delayed diagnosis has on cancer survival rates. And he said, we need to do something about this. And he asked organizations if they would take it on. And many said, this is really important, it needs to be done, but we don't have the capacity to do it. They were doing other things very well. So we looked online for other organizations that were doing something about it, and there weren't any. So he and his family founded 1540 Connection to do just that. And so now we call him our chief volunteer and fundraiser, but he's still helping to lead the organization. His whole family is. So.
Would you please explain the significance of the 1540 part?
Sure. So the original data that Jim was shown that showed him the impact of delayed diagnosis was for the age range 15 to 40. So in that age range, you have teenagers, you have young adults, you have young parents maybe with college kids on the very end of it. What kind of things does that age group have in common, right? Not a lot.
Right.
But the one thing they had in common was the cancer survival rates for that age range, and this is about 2008, hadn't improved since 1975.
Wow.
And one of the major reasons was delayed diagnosis. So that's where the name came from. It's the connection between them is delayed diagnosis.
You know, I'm going to bring up for the director to get this
Yeah.
graphic. So if we can focus on this graphic, it's striking what early detection can lead to and prevent. Would you expound upon this a little bit,
Sure.
please?
So what you're seeing is that the top 5 cancers listed are the 5 most common cancers diagnosed in the U.S. every year. And testicular is a very common cancer for young males, right? Teenagers, and we go back to our young adult roots. But so detected early, if you detect cancer at, say, a stage 1 for those cancers, you can see almost all of them have survival rates of 90% and above, with lung being the exception, right? Almost 100% at a stage 1. If you go to a stage 4, a very late diagnosis, you're, other than testicular, you're 30% and below.
Wow.
That's the impact of early detection.
Right.
Right.
And
But when I ask you, would you recognize a cancer symptom? We all know early
No.
detection works, right? But we haven't spent the time to really think about what can a cancer symptom look like or feel like. How do I know when to react?
how was the approach developed that we're going to talk about, which is a 3-step method to it? How was that developed and decided
Right.
upon?
It started out as a longer process. We taught people how to check themselves and things like that, but we really need to drill it down to something that's really simple for people to remember. A lot of times when you read about early cancer symptoms, you read about lists of symptoms for specific cancers, right? What we've done is we've defined the most common cancer symptom and given you 3 steps to help you at least recognize that you might potentially have a symptom and know when to take action.
And we're bringing up the graphic now to take
There
a
we go.
picture of the 3 steps.
Yeah.
Would you share a little bit about each?
Yeah, sure. So this is 3 steps detect, and the first step is really it's remember what great feels like. So what we're saying to you is, how do you feel on your best day? Right? What's your energy level like? Do you have pain? What are your bowel habits like? What are your sleep patterns like? Everything about how you feel on your best day. Make a note of it. Put something in your phone. Make a mental note that's strong enough that you won't, if it changes, say to yourself, if I always felt like this, or, you know, because that happens, that's
For
human nature,
sure.
right? So that what you're doing is you're benchmarking, what's normal for you, right? Then we move on to step 2. So use the 2-week rule. So if something about that great, your benchmark changes, and 2 weeks later you're not back to your great, that's when your body's saying, hey, I need some help here. And that's the time to seek medical attention. So primary care physicians love that rule, right? So an example of that I often use is, say for instance, you're only getting a cold or a flu and you get that fatigue, right? But after 2 weeks, the virus has run its course and you feel better, right? If you still have, say that fatigue kind of persisted through beyond 2 weeks, that's your body saying, something's going on, I need a little help. And that's when you need to seek care. Now the 3rd step, share with your doctor. Sounds really obvious, right? When you go with a doctor, tell the doctor or your medical provider what's wrong. But it's often hard for people to do. So we say, think of your doctor as a detective, right? If you're a detective, you arrive at the crime scene, there's a lot of clues, it's easy to solve the case, right? If you get there and there aren't many clues, it's very hard to solve the case. A
for
doctor
sure.
is the same way. The more clues you can provide, really about how you're feeling, the more likely you're going to get to an accurate diagnosis faster. And that's really all about step 3. So if something's embarrassing, you have a lump in a place you don't want to talk about, your bowel habits have changed, who wants to talk about that? We understand it's not always easy to talk about these things, but it's really important. Your doctor is going to follow your direction based on what you tell the doctor. You're actually the leader in that way in the exam room, right?
Most definitely.
So it's super important to do that.
In what ways has the organization grown over the last 10 years?
Yeah, a lot. So what's happened is, 10 years ago, people weren't talking about cancer symptoms. And now you see that in the media. People are recognizing that you need to be able to recognize what a symptom can feel like. And they're also starting to understand how important their role is in their own health care, right? That share with a doctor step is really important, and it really is a difference maker. So we started out teaching teens, young adults, people in schools, high schools, colleges, and we realized, okay, to reach the older levels, we need to hit corporate America, right? Because that's where a lot of people are. And we found people of all ages really in need of this education because they didn't know when to seek health care, or they felt like if you went after 2 weeks, you were being a hypochondriac, right? If it wasn't a big thing that might send you to the emergency room, I don't want to waste the doctor's time, right?
Yep.
And in fact, people in all environments that we met were having some significant health changes. They were subtle, but they were persistent, that needed attention. So that's become an important group for us, older adults, as well as, for instance, firefighters. When we learned that firefighters have such an increased risk of cancer, we sent out emails to just 10 firehouses around us, and within an hour we had responses saying, I'm interested, we need the training, right? So it's, we're out on the road training people every single day, doing webinars, self-paced learning, all sorts of things to get this education out there. Our
Wonderful.
goal is everybody can recognize symptoms and know when to seek health care and know what their role is, and then we're all going to go play golf or something.
That sounds good. Just have a tournament with
Exactly,
no
yeah.
great fundraiser in mind.
Exactly. We're all
maybe.
retiring.
That would
Yeah.
be fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come back in here a little bit more shortly. But Brenna, you started out by briefly sharing a little bit about your background. Can you share your experience with cancer and then how it led to involvement with 1540?
Yeah. So I was 21 years old in college in New York City, and I definitely had all the 3 steps. I knew that something didn't feel right, and it just kept getting worse. I had just basic little simple symptoms like cough and tired and, shortness of breath, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I finally kept going back to the doctor. And I think where I kind of messed up was the last step, which is share with the doctor. And instead of, being persistent and pushing, I just accepted what they would tell me, and they would send me home, and it led to me being misdiagnosed for over a year. Yeah, so it ended up being at stage 4. So it's really just important for me now that I have the chance to just share my story and teach people that you have to go into the doctor and be strict with them and tell them, this is my body and I know it doesn't feel right, and push for those answers because, we always say the doctor doesn't know everything. They don't know your body better than you do. So don't be embarrassed, or that's kind of, I would make a joke of everything just because I was like, oh, I'm back again. But if I had been more serious about it, maybe they would have taken me more seriously, so.
No, it's a wonderful example of needing to be your own advocate
Yeah.
with all health issues,
Exactly.
especially. And how has that taken you to working as an advocate? What instances have you been involved with?
Just doing speeches and stuff like this and being able to share my story. I love going to high schools and colleges just because if I had heard that back when I was in high school, maybe when it happened to me, I would have known, I need to go to the doctor and be more serious about this. But I didn't even know what cancer was, Cancer didn't run in my family. I was immune to cancer. But now I like to share and tell people that, you're not immune, you're not invincible, know your body, and these 3 steps are really important.
And how are you doing today?
I'm great. In December, I was 6 years cancer-free,
Oh,
so
congratulations.
yeah, it's crazy looking back that we've been doing this for 6
I
years.
know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've been involved for a long haul
Yeah,
now.
definitely.
That's fabulous,
Yeah,
fabulous.
thank you.
Joanie, could you build a little bit more on your background?
Sure, but first I cannot wait to be 6 years out as well.
You
and
will.
she'll be 12
Yep.
years and we'll still be doing this, so that'll be
Yes.
pretty cool. I am a firefighter in Wellesley, Massachusetts. I have been on the job for almost 11 years now. Last June, I received a free skin check at a firefighters convention, and they found a spot on my back. It was very small, told me to keep an eye on it, definitely get it checked out. I had a physical scheduled for August, ended up getting stuck at work on overtime, rescheduled it till February. When I finally got to that physical, I asked my doctor to biopsy this spot on my back. It had been on my mind the whole time, and she said, sure, we'll schedule an appointment. And I told her, we both know I'm not coming back. We have a high deductible insurance. I'm now or never. And she did it that day, and it ended up coming back as malignant melanoma. In March, I had surgery. They removed the tumor and found out that the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes. So last spring, I started a year's worth of oral chemotherapy. And like I said, I ran into these guys at a state meeting and was really passionate about their message, and been doing videos and talking with fire departments and trying to
Wonderful.
spread the word.
Yeah, how do you feel today?
It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
I'm alive, I'm doing well.
Nice.
You know, I'm here to help others, to
Great.
try and prevent anyone else from going through this.
Well, I
Chemo
know-
is not fun, so I feel like if I can use my voice and my role as a firefighter to help somebody else, then it'll be worth it.
For sure, for sure. And I know one of the things that has been put together with your involvement and your dermatologist, Dr. Candler, is a wonderful video clip that we're going to roll in shortly.
Yes.
Can you just share briefly what we're going to be able to see here?
Dr. Candler is the doctor who I like to say saved my life. She discovered my cancer, and we've been reconnected through the 1540 Foundation to do some work to raise awareness and early detection. I was lucky that she found the cancer on my back, because I was also having symptoms that I didn't pay attention to. I was extremely tired. I was out west a year ago today, actually, skiing, and I couldn't put a full day in on the slopes, and that was not like me. I was going to bed at 8 o'clock at work. I was just really tired, and I thought, I'm getting older. I think this is what it's like to be almost 38. Like, that was, you know, that was
Yeah.
the reality of it, and it turns out that I wasn't just getting old. I might be getting old, but I have cancer too. So
There are other complications.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that clip and then we'll continue our conversation. Please roll in the clip now.
Everyone in my family is a nurse. So I was like, I don't know, science isn't my thing. So for some strange reason, I took an EMT class. It clicked just then. I said, that's what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be a fireman. I love everything about the job.
My brother was probably the typical firefighter, tough on the outside. He had this inner core that was so sweet. His cancer was very tough for my family, and this is my way of reaching out to the community to provide some good in his memory.
I did not want to get screened. I had not been to the dermatologist since I was 25 years old. My friend Mike said, let's go get a skin check. I said, no, I'm good. He said, let's go talk to the girls, they're cute. I said, that I can do.
When I saw Joanie at the free cancer screening, I saw a brown spot on her lower back.
She took a picture so I could show it to my doctor when I finally went. I asked my doctor to take a look at the spot on my back. She said, we definitely need to biopsy that. We'll schedule an appointment for you to come back. And I looked at her and I laughed and said, we both know I'm not coming back. So she said she would do same-day biopsy for me. And it came back as malignant melanoma. I didn't realize that I was having symptoms, but I was tired all the time, and I really thought, I gotta hit the gym more, I'm out of shape, I'm getting old.
Someone should take note of what their great feels like, and if that is something that you are not feeling for about a 2-week period, you should definitely reach out to your physician. Early detection is so important with cancer because the earlier we detect it, the more chance we have of curing it.
Not in a million years did I ever think I would have cancer, especially not at 37 years old. It is so important for us to pay attention to our bodies, to go get skin checks, go get physicals. If you notice something on someone else, say something. We're all in this together. That skin check saved my life.
Wow, that is a very powerful piece underscoring the importance of early detection, and can see the value reaching so many people through its distribution. Thank you for putting it together. And
I just spoke. They did the rest.
Great.
Yeah.
Did a great job.
And Dr. Candler and her work, outstanding.
She's amazing. She really is.
And we mentioned at the beginning the work with firefighters, and we have a few images just to share to give a sample, and feel free to add any commentary. I think we have Gloucester here.
Or as we say in New England, Gloucester. Yeah.
And when you work with these gentlemen and others, what are some of the reactions and feedback you get from the presentations?
Yeah, great question. So we have yet to been to a firehouse or a fire department that doesn't have a cancer story. So firefighters know that cancer, they have a high probability of cancer, higher than the rest of us, right? As it is, 40% of us are going to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in our lives. With firefighters, it's much more than that, right? So they're all too aware. So when we talk to them about early detection, it's eye-opening, especially when you share stories like Joanie's. A lot of what we do when we teach the 3 steps, we do it through storytelling, so that you can envision yourself being like in Joanie's shoes.
Sure.
If you had this little, you think it looks like a freckle, but somebody tells you it's something more and you still feel relatively fine, do you really want to take action? As a firefighter, you have to tough through minor injuries and pain and things like that, right? It's kind of a byproduct of your job, and to do your job, you have to push through it. And now we're saying, okay, if it's persistent though, more than 2 weeks, you have to go to the doctor. And their eyes roll back until they hear the stories, until they think about how it's happened in their own department, and we've had a really positive reaction. So we're now getting requests from all over the country to come and do this 3 steps to training in firehouses, fire departments.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know this next one is still local in Worcester.
Worcester, right? Very good.
I've been here for a while, thank goodness. But this next one, you're in New York.
That's right, FDNY. Yeah, they've been a great partner with us. What we did in this photo, you see a lot of their trainers. So FDNY has 40 plus trainers that then train their firefighters.
Fabulous.
So they're going to train over the next probably 14 months now that's left, over 11,000 firefighters in New York. Wow. How to use 3 steps detect.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've done some great things
What
with FDNY.
significant
They're a great
growth
partner.
over 10 years to reach that number of
Exactly,
people.
yeah.
And growing and growing.
Right,
Fabulous.
right. Worcester was 500, which was big. This is huge, right? And it's a quick way to teach a lot of people how to detect cancer early.
And I know it's not just limited to firefighters,
No,
for sure.
no.
I think here we have you a presentation at Dell.
That's right, yeah. You know, the interesting thing here too, in the corporate world, you run into some people who, like we've said before, they don't want to bother the doctor But when using 3 steps to detect, we've had people find cancer as well as other things like heart disease. So people have found clogged arteries at, say, the 60%, 70% level instead of 90 to 100. And that's made a big difference in their lives. I tell the story of somebody I work out with who had persistent calf pain. And after I told him about 3 steps to detect, his wife bothered him to go get that checked out. And because it had been well over 2 weeks. And of course he's thinking, I have calf pain, I go to the gym, right? But it had been in sort of the same spot and it was persistent, so she finally convinced him to go. And if his eyes are way back in his head, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But as soon as he told the doctor's face changed and got real serious. And rolled in an ultrasound machine, he had a blood clot. And for pulmonary embolisms, that's where the blood clots tend to start. And they travel, sometimes they just let loose, and the consequences can be severe. So it works in situations like that too, or for diseases other than cancer. But we're going after cancer primarily. It's nice to have those byproducts, those side effects.
Yeah, it just underscores both all your testimony and these instances, the power of the simple 3-step method.
Right.
Just very easy, as you said initially, to remember, but just focusing, self-examination, giving it a little while, the 2 weeks, but then acting on it, and as you're making the point, Brenna, to be an advocate if something does seem wrong as well.
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And moving on just very quickly in limited time, just going to different audiences, a number of student groups.
Yeah. So with schools, sometimes we'll train teachers to deliver 3 steps to detect, or we can do all school assembly. So this is an all school assembly that was at Worcester Academy, and I forget where he's sitting, but there's a young man, his name is Asa Floyd, in the audience. And he's thinking, this is great, but I don't really need to know this. He was a sophomore, right? But he's being a good kid, he's paying attention. Well, fast forward, I think about 2 months, and he finds a testicular lump. He's a quarterback on the football team. He thinks it's probably an injury. But because he had the training, he kept checking on it. And what he noticed really over a month is that it wasn't going away, and in fact, it was getting bigger. So that's not something a teenager wants to talk to their mom about, right? So he finally does. He tells his mother about it, and of course they get it checked out right away, and he had testicular cancer. But his treatment, because it was stage 1, was relatively easy. He didn't need chemo or radiation or any other types of treatments you hear involved with cancer. He had it removed, and he was done. In fact, he's been monitored over the past year and a half, and he just rang the bell last week. He's cancer-free.
Fabulous, fabulous. In the very limited time, I just want to move on to this recognition that you recently received from the Mass Association of Clinical Oncologists. Could you just briefly share this recognition?
Yeah, that was an award at the end of 2018 that we unexpectedly received for doing good for the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in advancing cancer care and treatment and outcomes, improving outcomes. So that was a great honor.
Fabulous, fabulous. In wrap-up time, so unfortunately I was going to say future plans, but I want to encourage people as we bring up this image to go to your website, 1540.org, to keep a touch
Learn the 3
with
steps and read. There's lots of stories from people that have had cancer. Brenna's is there. Joanie's, I think, is up there now, right?
Yes,
too.
yeah.
And you can read more about their stories and understand what it was like to be them going through this process. Envision yourself in that role, and how would you do it?
Right, and as you said, the stories are the most powerful way, I think, to get the point across. So thank you all for taking the time to be here and for the important work you're all doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.